All right. Hello, everyone. I don't know who's going to join me for this discussion. It's not going to be a long discussion, but it's going to be a discussion nonetheless. Let me see if this is broadcasting to YouTube. Yep, there's Coach Prime. And then there's the red icon. I want to thank whoever gave me this like before the stream. That's always a good sign. That means somebody's looking for it. I apologize to those of you who thought this was going to go last night. I went to a networking event after work. Networking is an important part of being a professional. You always want to be out there shaking hands and making connections and talking to people. So I did some networking after work, and then I got back late. And then a coworker, Ra, that's not his government name, a coworker named Ra, said, "Hey, there's this happy hour hosted by Huggy Lowdown at the MGM Casino, which is near where I live." So I said, okay, well, I've been sitting in front of a computer all day. I've been in meetings all day. It's late. It's going to take a while for the computer to boot up. I'll just go out and be social. So I went over there. I didn't see my coworker, and they were going through some family things. So hopefully his family is okay. But that's what happened last night. I had intended to do this last night, and I don't want to keep putting it off. So I decided to do it today after I clocked off for my 9 to 5. So today is actually a triple header for me. I did something around lunchtime. I'm doing this now, and I'm doing something over on my sports channel around 9 o'clock tonight. A very important interview with someone for my book project. And the one I did earlier was on my sports channel regarding Michigan football and Ohio State football. So tonight we're going to talk about, I'm going to say a few words about the Coach Prime Bonanza. I haven't really talked about this. It's not that I haven't wanted to talk about it, but you always want to chase what the crowd is doing. So I thought now was a good time, especially after their first loss. So I'm going to say a few words about the Coach Prime Bonanza. That's what I call it. And just the frenzy surrounding Coach Prime and his moving from Jackson State to Colorado. And I'm just going to say what I think about it. Ray Alexander, thank you for, first of all, I want to acknowledge Salchi the Equalizer. And I want to acknowledge Ray Alexander. Ray Alexander, thank you for stopping through. I thought I saw a comment from you last night. This was supposed to go last night, but maybe you deleted it. But thank you for being here. I could see this. I could have done this on my sports channel, but there's a lot here. You can approach it from sports, and you can approach it from the focuses over here. So over here, I talk about current events, education, careers, social topics, those kinds of things. There's a lot here in terms of education, social topics, and current events and education. Did I already say education? But anyway, there's a lot here under this umbrella for me to talk about, and I'll probably do something as I'm covering Michigan football over my other channel. I'll probably do more sports related aspects of this, but there's just a lot. There's just a lot here. So I'm going to play my short intro, and then I am going to jump in, and then I'm going to jump off because, today is a triple header for me. I want to acknowledge Raheem Gaines. Raheem Gaines, thank you for stopping through. Oh, I got a super chat. I haven't gotten a lot of these recently from Professor Black Ops Power to the People. I'm sorry, Cybersecurity for the People. Professor Black Ops, thank you for this generous super chat. That's much appreciated. All right, let me play this intro. It's quick, and then I will hop in with my discussion points. And this is going to be a little bit of fun. I mean, this is a polarizing. Some people might look and say, "What's the big deal over this college football coach?" But this people are polarized over this. All right, where's my intro for this channel? Because of where I come from, see, in this world, we're all living in different worlds, and not everybody is privy to the same information. Well, gentlemen, thank you. Thank you for this second discussion on this controversial but important topic. Do either of you have any parting words?
I do. And it's just thank you for having us. I really appreciate it. You ask questions in such a way that I don't know what your perspective is. I think as a host, that's exactly perfect. It's difficult, but you get more on the table from guests if you're not the story. And I really, really appreciate talking to you.
All right. I appreciate that.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Anwar.
Because of where I come from, see, in this world, we're all living in different worlds, and not everybody is privy to the same information. All right, everyone, welcome back to Big Discussions 76, my original channel. As I described, I want to move towards more of a podcast format. That was from the last discussion with James Harrigan and Dr. Anthony Davies, a political scientist and economist. They run the Words and Numbers podcast, and they wrote Cooperation and Coercion, and they were gracious enough to come over and talk to me, I think 2 to 3 times. I want to have them back. Before I jump in, I think I told the story in the last stream. I was at home in Buffalo visiting my mother, and I was watching the Words and Numbers podcast, and Anthony and James use a still. And I remember my mother came in and she asked me what I was watching. And I said, I'm watching this podcast. It has a lot of good information. And she said, what color are these guys? Are they, are they white? So I like to tell the story because it's my opinion that valuable information comes from people of all shades and colors and ethnicities. And ignoring information or discarding information from someone because they don't look like you, I think that's, well, I'll just say I think that's not wise. But that's just me. We can learn a lot from people who don't look like us. All right. Now that I'm off my high horse, so a podcast format, other authors, subject matter experts. I have Ron Wills coming in about 2 weeks. He agreed to come back. We're going to talk about the business of YouTubing. And I'm working my way through Dr. Tiasan Johnson's book. So that's going to be hot. So look out for that. His book is called Solutions for Anti-Black Misandry, Flat Blackness, and Black Male Death. So if you haven't got your copy, it's not a long read. I mean, the pages are dense, but there's some really good information in here. So he agreed to come talk to me. So look out for that. He did a really, really good interview on the We Need to Talk channel. Okay, that's coming tonight. We're going to talk about Coach Prime. And I have some drops here. I'm going to play the Master Teachers, BGS's favorite drop of Coach Prime. In the meantime, let me know, are you guys pro Coach Prime or are you anti Coach Prime?
What's up, boss? You believe that? Hold on. Oh no. Do you believe in that?
That's when Colorado was 3-0. I'm going to play that again.
What's up, boss? You believe that? Hold on. Oh no. Do you believe in that?
Do you believe now? Salchi, thank you for the generous Cash App. That's much appreciated. Okay, the Coach Prime Bonanza. Before I jump in, let's why did did I name that? This. What's the definition of bonanza? We should be on this channel. We should always learn something. Bonanza, a situation or event that creates a sudden increase in wealth, good fortune, or profits. Okay, let me read that again. Bonanza, a situation. I'll share it with you all. We should all learn something here. That's the focus of this channel now. A bonanza. A situation or event that creates a sudden increase in wealth, good fortune, or profits. So I would say Coach Prime has caused quite the bonanza out in Boulder, Colorado. By the way, I'm going to Boulder in about, I'm going next week for a meeting. Unfortunately, Coach Prime and the Buffaloes will be down in Tempe, Arizona, but that's probably why they chose that Saturday for the meeting. But I'm going to pick up some gear though. So the Coach Prime Bonanza. So believe it or not, I get text messages every day, damn near every day, from a buddy of mine, Abdul Gaines. He's not here, but it's Raheem Gaines' brother. And every day there's more text messages about Coach Prime, and they're picking on Coach Prime and Coach Prime this and Coach Prime that. And Jason Whitlock is coming after Coach Prime, and the coaches conspired against Coach Prime. Coach Prime this, Coach Prime that. So I wrote down some discussion points here. So I think when I mean, certainly in our culture today here in the United States, maybe we pay too much attention to celebrities, entertainers, athletes. Well, we have to pay attention to the politicians because they're, either implementing or canceling policies that are affecting our everyday lives. But arguably, we spend too much time focusing on athletes and entertainers and celebrities and musicians, though some distraction from real life is good. But there's a lot, if you're watching with a keen and discerning eye, there's a lot that you can glean, and there's a lot that you can learn from these people. Right now, I'm thinking about former Michigan State head coach Mel Tucker, who got fired for something that happened with, I can't think of, Brenda Tracy. Is that her name? Brenda Tracy. So that example was another instance where we saw a man of high stature get himself in trouble, position himself to get in trouble, and got himself fired. Well, positioned himself to get himself in trouble, which positioned him to get fired. And I don't think he's going to get the rest of his salary. I don't know what the terms of it, all the terms of it were in terms of his firing. But that's another reminder to men in general, and also men with some sort of power and standing, in this instance, a black man. You need to be careful. You need to be careful in your dealings. You need to be careful of what you get yourself involved in. And you need to protect that which you worked so hard for. So there are things that we can glean and we can learn from looking at these people. Shout out to Diamond Dave. He did a good video on that. I don't think he did one on Coach Prime. If he, there may be one on the way. But I like Dave's content, Diamond Dave's content. I want to interview him one day. He made a really, really interesting video from about a year ago about how Bill Cosby helped, I might not say this right, how he helped trick a lot of young people into thinking that college was the only way to go, without considering the financing of it and those kinds of things. But that's a different discussion. So Coach Prime Coach Prime, Deion Sanders. I had you guys know what song I had in my mind yesterday? Let's see if anyone can get this. Only the Gen Xers here might know this. This is the song I had in my mind yesterday at work. I'll do it again. Who knows what that is? Anybody? Who knows what that is? Wow, no takers. Salchi got it. All right. Salchi got it. So there are those of us who grew up with Coach Prime when he was prime time. There are those of us who watched him. Well, I didn't watch him at Florida State. I watched him when he got to the league. Me and my brother got into football in the late 80s. He got drafted by the Falcons. He played baseball with the Braves. And so we grew up watching him intercept the ball and high step it into the end zone and dance when he got into the end zone. And, we saw him in Too Legit to Quit. That was a popular MC Hammer track. And there's a clip of him and Andre Bad Moon Rising in there. And we saw him take his services from the Atlanta Falcons to the San Francisco 49ers and help them win a Super Bowl. And then we saw him take his services the next year from the San Francisco 49ers to the Dallas Cowboys. And so we saw, many of us grew up with that. So we knew Deion from there. I think he got into commentating a little bit. At some point, he got saved. He got married. I think he was running with TD Jakes for a little bit, just like Emmitt Smith. And then most recently, he resurfaced into coaching. And so I just have a few discussion points here. The first thing when I think about this Coach Prime Bonanza is I think about a clash of cultures. A clash of two different ways of doing things. Okay. Deion's brand is very flashy, a lot of dancing, sunglasses, hats, swagger, confidence, bravado, some trash talking, some taunting. That's Deion's brand. Okay, so now we're talking about business and image. That's Deion's brand. So even before Deion got to Colorado, there was a bit of there were some hard feelings leading up to last week's loss out at Oregon. But even when Deion was in the SWAC, Deion's show, his brand, his bravado, that caused problems in the SWAC.
I'm going to shake your hand and I'm going to go on. I'm going to always be respectful and respect the game. You got the great guys, W.C. Gordons, Eddie G. Robinsons, those guys, Marino Chasm. I'm living on the shoulders of the SWAC. He ain't SWAC. I'm SWAC. He ain't SWAC.
I remember seeing that from a distance last year, and I was thinking, whoa, what's that all about? Let me play that again.
I'm going to shake your hand and I'm going to go on. I'm going to always be respectful and respect the game. You got the great guys, W.C. Gordons, Eddie G. Robinsons, those guys, Marino Chasm. I'm living on the shoulders of the SWAC. He ain't SWAC. I'm SWAC. He ain't SWAC.
Ain't SWAC. I'm SWAC. Does anyone here know who Eddie Robinson Sr. is? That was Eddie Robinson Jr. Does anyone know who Eddie Robinson Sr. was? Anyone in the chat? We're going to do a little bit of trivia here. Anybody? Professor Black Ops says, yes, he knows. But while you guys answer that, there was something about Deion that, according to Eddie Robinson Jr., was conflicting with the culture of the SWAC. Okay. T Riddler, yes, I think, yeah. I mean, all you guys know. Does anyone know? And I'm going to keep going. Who the legendary quarterback that Eddie Robinson coached, who went on to make history in the NFL. So there was something about Deion's bravado and his swagger and his way of doing things that conflicted with the SWAC, because what Eddie Robinson Jr. was saying was, hey, look, we have a culture here. We have a history here. We have a way of doing things here. And what Deion is bringing is not in line with what we do here and what we are in the SWAC. JJ Mars says James Harris. No. I don't know what position he plays, but I'm thinking about a more prominent position. Of course, Raheem Gaines knows it was Doug Williams, I believe, the first black quarterback to win the Super Bowl. They beat the Broncos, another team which is falling on hard times. But Deion's response to Eddie Robinson Jr. was funny, it was compelling, and it was very, very interesting.
And one of the comments that kind of disturbed me out of all the comments, that I'm not SWAC. Who is?
I'm not SWAC. Who is? But it didn't stop there.
I got time today. Who is SWAC? If I ain't SWAC, who is SWAC? If I ain't SWAC, who is SWAC? If I ain't SWAC, who is SWAC? Baby, who is?
So Deion took that and he had fun with it. He made it a bit of a spectacle, and he had fun with it. I have two more sound bites here. I'm going to play this one, and I'm going to play one more.
I don't know. It could be a plethora of things. I think he thought he was going to get a win. I don't know why he would have ever thought that.
He might have thought he was going to get a win. I don't know why he thought that. And then there's another one here, which leads into the whole business discussion.
And I heard him also spew out comments about what did I say leading up to the week. I think I was a darn good salesman leading up to the week. Did we sell the game out? Well, did we sell the game out? Yes or no? Had they ever been sold out here?
Okay, that soundbite, the SWAC comments were funny, but that particular soundbite stood out to me because that revealed Deion as a businessman. Okay, I think I did a damn good job. Didn't we sell the stadium out? When's the last time they sold the stadium out here at Alabama State? Okay, so what Deion was saying was, hey, I brought a crowd here. I'm good for business. What's the problem? Why the animosity? What are you worried about? I put butts in the seats. Okay, and well, let's look at the score of that game really quickly, because if you listen to the interview, Eddie Robinson Jr. didn't like how Deion behaved before the game, and also, where is that? Jackson. You guys keep letting me know what you think there in the chat. Yeah, here it is. So Jackson State won that game 26-12. And part of the friction, if you listen to that interview or that post-game press conference, is that Deion put his backup quarterback on the field. He took Shador out, and he ran a hitch and go. And so I think it was that thing where Eddie Robinson Jr. thought that, okay, you have the game won, don't try to run the score up. So Eddie Robinson Jr. responded by blitzing Deion's backup quarterback. So I think it was that whole "you're trying to show me up, you're trying to embarrass my team" thing. But it was a clash of cultures. Deion was perceived as ignoring the culture that they had in the SWAC, the football part of it, and just coming in and trying to do something essentially for himself and for his own team. So that was a bit of a culture clash. There was a culture clash there. There were other culture clashes. You might ask, what other culture clashes were there? Well, this soundbite, we know that Colorado they lost handily last week to Oregon. Okay. And these are two drops that I used on my sports channel of the Oregon coach motivating his team before their matchup with Colorado. Well, here's one.
You top of your helmet, right? Every moment. The Cinderella story is over, man. Right? They're fighting for clicks, we're fighting for wins. There's a difference, right? There's a difference.
I thought I loaded up the other two. Give me 1 second here. Played on the grass, rooted in substance. And this is fascinating because that Oregon coach was really, really charged up to play Deion. And he really, really wanted his players to take it personally that they were playing Colorado.
Rooted in substance, not flash. Rooted in substance. Today, we talk with our pads.
Another one.
Right? This game ain't going to be played in Hollywood. It's going to be played on the grass. Yes, sir, it is. Right? It's going to be played on the grass. Let's go.
It's not going to be played on Hollywood. It's not going to be played in Hollywood. It's going to be played on the grass. Okay. So back to Deion's image and his brand. It's very shiny and glossy and confident. It's swagged out. I think a lot of the other coaches were offended by that. A lot of the other coaches were maybe envious about how everyone's buying the Deion stock. Everyone was, a lot of coaches were salty about the fact that he has this big following, right? And many of the coaches use that as bulletin board material to motivate their players. Now, there were also reports after that game that Coach Dan Lanning and other coaches got together and traded notes and exchanged strategies for defeating the Buffaloes. So once again, that's a clash of cultures. Deion's coming in with all the fanfare and the dancing and the hat and the sunglasses and all the rappers showing up at his games. And all the other coaches are saying, look, well, he hasn't proven anything yet. Why is he getting all this respect? Why is he getting all of this bravado? He hasn't proven anything. He hasn't beaten anyone. He hasn't done it for a full season yet. So a clash of cultures, right? Now, where else has there been a clash of cultures? Let's see what Jason Whitlock thinks. I've gotten tweets, I've gotten text messages every day about this too. I don't know how you guys feel about Jason Whitlock. I think that he's just eating. I think Jason is just eating off this himself. He's just getting his helping from the buffet himself, because this whole thing is a bit of a buffet. Okay, my latest thoughts. on Deion Sanders, Kermani McCain, Deion defenders, and Kwame Brown's criticism of me. Let's see. The uninformed shout down the intelligent. That explains all the noise surrounding my critique of Deion Sanders. Let's see. Just bear with me, everyone. There's more here. Let's see. Cap has been in his crosshairs a little bit recently. Colin Kaepernick. Okay. Whitlock was playing. Let's see. Ryan Clark, Keyshawn Johnson, all these guys are so desperate for Deion to have success. So when they are head coaching candidates, they can skip the line like Deion did. They are rooting for Deion for their own self-interests. All the media caping up for Deion makes him look weak and so fragile that if they don't kiss his butt, he won't come on the show. It is such a cowardly form of alleged manhood and leadership. I just can't respect it. And I think I'll stop there. Here's another one. ESPN is the diversity, equity, and inclusion network. But when it comes to talking about Deion, you don't need any diversity of thought. I'll read this last one. Colorado's 42-6 loss to Oregon on Saturday would have been a great opportunity to slow the horses on the runaway Coach Prime bandwagon. But for Deion's defenders in the media, it was time to go on offense. Okay. So Jason has been very open about his criticism for the Coach Prime Bonanza. There's my brother there in the chat. He says, Coach Prime and his family are giving us the best reality show over multiple platforms. We've never seen this before. They're the new Huxtables. That's an interesting take, bro. So I'm going to show this other one, and then I'm going to move on. I only have a few more points here. This was sent to me as well. This is off of the ESPN site. Okay, Jason Whitlock just gave scathing remarks for ESPN. And Deion blocked him on Twitter, by the way. Twitter X. This article, I'm not going to read this verbatim. This is below in the description box. Colorado, Deion Sanders, a quick winner among Black fans. So going back to Deion's brand and Deion's, what this represents for a lot of people, a lot of Black people have gotten behind Deion for obvious reasons, but this is kind of like our modern Georgetown, our modern UNLV, our modern University of Michigan Fab Five. For a lot of people, this is what Deion represents. And so it's in a way, it's funny to see the Wu-Tang Clan going out to Boulder, Colorado. It's funny to see all these down south rappers who would never have stepped foot in Boulder, Colorado. Maybe they would have gone to Aspen to ski, but to see all these people step foot in Boulder, Colorado, just for the sake of Deion, it's showing how much of a movement this is and how much people are getting behind him. Please continue to let me know what you think there in the chat. Okay, so a big discussion point. Before I say that, one of my mentors, one of the things that, and this is someone I trust a lot in terms of world perspective, one of the things that he really likes about what Deion is doing is the mentoring men aspect. And if you follow the program, it's clear that he has a close bond with a lot of those, with all the players, and many of them look at him as a surrogate father. So what I'm seeing is that he genuinely cares about his players, and he's not just there to use them up and cycle them out and cycle in a new crop. Okay, so that's a bit of a clash of cultures there. Dr. Boyce Watkins, who's B1, he's a money guy. So one of the things that he was talking about when Deion announced that he was going over to Colorado was that a lot of people expressed the sentiment that he was betraying HBCUs and he was betraying Black colleges. I think the big opportunity there with him going to Jackson State, I think that was his first head coaching job. So they gave him his start. I think realistically, they weren't going to be able to hold on to him forever. He was eventually going to move on. It was just a matter of, is it sooner or is it later? But I think the opportunity there was that Deion, along with Eddie George, and if Ed Reed hadn't blasted I think it was Bethune-Cookman, if he hadn't blasted that the administrators at that school, if he hadn't blasted the school on social media, he would probably still be there. But the strength of them being there is that they had the power to recruit many of the top players to come there, to come back to the SWAC and to come to the MEAC. And I don't think the CIAA, I went to Johnson C. Smith. Johnson C. Smith is in the CIAA, but they could have gotten some of the top 5-star players, the 5 and 4-star players, to come to the HBCUs. And I think coaches like Nick Saban, Kirby Smart, maybe Coach Harbaugh, Jim Harbaugh at my alma mater, the University of Michigan, I think that's something that they were afraid of. I think that was a legitimate concern for coaches like Nick Saban and Dan Lanning and maybe Jim Harbaugh, though Michigan goes after specific players just like Notre Dame. But the big boys who were getting the 5-star recruits, Ohio State, I think that they were concerned about that because a lot of players were turning and looking and saying, okay, well, I want to go play for Coach Prime. I want to go play for Eddie George. I want to go play for Ed Reed. These guys were in the NFL. They were Pro Bowlers. Some of them were Super Bowl champions. And we want to go there. So there was a huge opportunity there for the HBCUs to regain relevancy in terms of college football. Now, Deion was a professional. He's a professional, so he had to do what's best for his career. All of us do at some point have to make a decision as to whether or not I'm going to stay where I am, or if I'm being offered something better somewhere else, am I going to go? I looked it up yesterday. What was Deion making at Jackson State University? And Jackson State had the water issues. Jackson had the water issues. I think Deion was surprised at some of the conditions he saw on campus. But in terms of his base salary, what was Deion making at Jackson State? My quick research found that Deion was making $300,000 a year. Okay. That's lawyer money. Well, if you're a good lawyer, that's lawyer money. If you work in if you're a high paid professional in corporate America, that's not bad. I think Salchi, no, that's not a 1%er. So at Jackson State, Deion wasn't even a 1%er. He was in the 10%, the 10% to 1% range. Now he was probably making money from endorsements and contracts with car dealers and other things. So he probably was making money with the endorsements. But in terms of his base salary, he wasn't a 1%er. So what's he making now at Colorado? Now Deion's making $5.5 million per year. And his contract has incentives in it. So there's a huge monetary increase and a huge monetary gain for him and his family with him moving to Colorado. Okay. So there's a huge loss for the HBCUs, but there's a huge gain for Coach Prime and his relatives. Now, what's another difference between going from an HBCU to a PWI? So I looked up the enrollment. The Jackson State enrollment is 9,811 students currently. The Colorado enrollment is 37,153 students. Let me say that again. The Colorado enrollment is 37,153 students. So it's a much bigger machine. It's a much bigger business. Higher education is a business. And HBCUs, having gone to one, and other people have said this, shout out to O'Shea Duke Jackson, they're in large part large high schools. So you're going from this small school targeting one demographic, and well, I'll get to that later, but now you're going to this larger institution, this larger machine with donors, with a large alumni base, and you're on TV and you're in the national spotlight. So yeah, so he wasn't going to stay forever, realistically, like a Eddie Robinson did back in that era. But it's interesting when you hear the stories, and when Deion went on 60 Minutes said that he didn't want to come out and just lay out everything that happened at Jackson State. But we know that there were some money issues. The math wasn't mathing. And he was outspoken about the ticket sales didn't line up with the amounts that they said that they made from those games. So you go from that. He had to make a decision to go from that to go to Colorado. And you wonder, when you listen to Eddie Robinson Jr. talk afterwards about Deion not being SWAC, and when you hear about the stories about how they were handling the finances at Jackson State, you wonder if they realized the opportunity that they had when they had Deion there. I don't know that they did. And that's something, having attended an HBCU myself, the people in charge of those institutions, you wonder sometimes if they see the big picture, and you wonder sometimes the moves that they make. Why are they making those moves? Why do they seem to not be doing what's in the best interests of the students there? I might be getting myself in trouble for asking this question, but I'm saying that to say that as a graduate of an HBCU, when you talk to other HBCU grads, you hear stories about what goes on there, and they're not always the nicest things, and they're not always the smartest things. And Deion probably took that into consideration when he went over to Colorado. 2 more points, and then I'm going to wrap this up. Raheem Gaines just nailed my next point. Alumni support matters so much in college football. Well, Raheem Gaines, alumni support matters, period. Okay. Does anybody know what one of the biggest issues is that HBCUs face? Art Newstall, thank you for stopping through. Peace, fam. What is one of the biggest issues that HBCUs face? Salchi said, I think this goes back to my last discussion point. They don't see the macro, or they simply don't care. Yeah, and it's a lot of them are like little kingdoms and little fiefdoms, almost like churches, where the people are in these positions, the school president, the director of this and the director of that. And sometimes it seems like having those positions and having that status is the most important thing at some of our HBCUs. So there's a lot of that status thing. But I agree, seeing the micro and not the macro. One of the biggest issues that all all HBCUs face is alumni giving. Let me pull Raheem Gaines's comment back up. Okay, I was the treasurer for my alumni chapter for my HBCU, so I heard about all this stuff firsthand. And I also got to interview Cheryl. Jeez, I can't think of her last name. She was doing work earlier in the 2010s with the Tom Joyner Foundation. And so I got to, they pinged me, or they tapped me to interview her for this thing that the Tom Joyner Foundation was doing, the Quotes for Dollars campaign. And one of the things, she was a FAMU alum, and one of the things that we talked about, and one of the things that she mentioned in our discussions, was that HBCU alums across the board don't give back. For whatever reason, HBCU alums are not generous when it comes to giving back to the institutions that help them start their own lives and set up their own professional lives. Folks come back to the yard for homecoming. Folks go to the step shows. Folks go to CIAA. Folks go to the MEAC tournament. Folks go to this classic and that classic. But for whatever reason, alumni giving is paltry. And what that does is it makes big donors like Microsoft and John Deere and Apple, it makes them say, okay, well, if the alumni aren't giving back, then we're not going to give anything because they don't care. If they don't care about their school, then we're not going to care about their school. So it's a very, very interesting dynamic. So I think if Deion, I think he probably would have had a different experience there. The money at the institution probably would have been better if there was better alumni giving. Now, I'm going to be honest. I don't know what Jackson State's giving rate is in terms of their alumni. But if it's anything like some of the other HBCUs, then it's paltry. There's not much. So I think he probably would have had a different experience at Jackson State if their books were better, if their finances were better, and if they didn't have those issues with the revenues from the games and what they allegedly made and didn't make. I know that was a big sticking point for him. Let me look up this woman's name because it's on my blog. Cheryl Harris. She was a Florida A&M alum. And that's one of the bigger and more prominent HBCUs. I'm almost done here. And then finally, so that was trials and tribulations of HBCUs. So that lack of alumni giving, it trickles down and it affects everything. It affects everything. But that goes back to Deion's comment about putting butts in the seats. He was creating revenue. He was creating a financial windfall for everybody. Jackson State, Alabama State, all the schools in the SWAC, the majority of a large number of the HBCUs. So not keeping him there longer, not doing what they needed to do to keep him there longer, that was a big loss for everybody. My final point here, and then I'm going to wrap up, is that business. Let me play this clip again. I see Ray Alexander left a comment there. I'm going to read it because Ray Alexander always has something thought-provoking to say. At the heart of all this is business.
And I heard him also spew out comments about what did I say leading up to the week. I think I was a darn good salesman leading up to the week. Did we sell the game out? Well, did we sell the game out? Yes or no? Had they ever been sold out here?
That's a pretty powerful statement. Have they ever been sold out here? I mean, look at all the people who are now going to Colorado. Look at all the people who are now going to Boulder who never would have stepped foot in Boulder before. Have they ever sold out here before? Now, how many of you all have been to an HBCU football game? In the chat, how many of you have been to one? I'm going to read Ray Alexander's comment while somebody answers. He says, Raheem Gaines, state-supported HBCUs must be equitably funded. Southern states have historically underfunded those universities, and they need to be funded up to par, just like the mainstream schools. Ray Alexander, I'm not disagreeing with you, but that doesn't address why alumni don't care enough about their own schools to not give anything back. Yeah, I mean, if it's ours, if they belong to us, we should be giving back. So Reynolds says yes, several. So depending upon the school, you know, the attendance is going to be better or not. It's going to be good or not so good. But at many schools, the football games are social events, and they're not always about the football. They're social events. They're about the bands. They're about people dancing, you know, in the stands. You know, they're about the dancing girls in the bands. They're about the drum major. It's like there's a reason they made drumline like that, because at a lot of HBCUs, it's all about the band. It's all about the total experience. It's all about meeting up on the yard after the game. Okay. It's not always about the football. I tried to explain this to a friend once, and she said, no, those games are as good as the big time college football games. And I said, no, they're different. They're different. It's a different thing. So why am I saying that? I'm just saying that to say that it's different. And what Deion did was he was putting butts in the seats wherever he went, and people were flocking to him, and they were flocking to the games to watch the games, to watch the competition in the field. And I think probably Deion made the bands secondary and the dancing girls secondary. And it's usually not like that. So he was a real change agent, right? And he was good for business for everyone. But I don't know that the people in charge at Jackson State, Eddie Robinson Jr., the other coaches in the SWAC, and the other administrators in the SWAC, I don't know that they realized that. And I don't know that they moved accordingly to keep him there longer. So, and that pretty much sums up what I have to say. Hey, I hope that Deion does well at Colorado. Let's take a look at Colorado's record right now. I think a lot of people other than Raheem Gaines were stunned that they lost the way that they did to Oregon. But some people saw it coming. It's difficult for any first-year coach to turn a program completely around in 1 year. There are recruiting cycles. There's establishing a culture. There's establishing a continuity. There's keeping qualified and competent assistants. So there's not a lot we could tell about how Deion is going to do over the long term after 4 games. And to expect him to turn the program around in 1 year, it is unrealistic, right? So right now, Colorado is 3-1 overall, and they're 0-1 in Pac-12 play. And everybody's looking and saying, okay, well, they have to play more big boys out there. They have to play Washington. They have to play who are the other big boys in that conference? They have to play USC. I think that's the next game. They have to play Utah. So Coach Prime and the Buffaloes will likely end the season with a few more L's. And will the enthusiasm be the same way in December after year 1 is done? We have to wait and see. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say, everyone. People have been talking about this since January, but I thought it was time for me to, as I'm finishing up Dr. T.S. Johnson's book, I thought it was a good time for me to throw this in there and talk about this a little bit. And that's what I have to say about this. So I'm going to read some of the comments here that I'm going to wrap up because it's almost at an hour. I'm going to start here. Raheem Gaines said, alumni. Okay, let me go up to Salty's comment here. Well, let me go up to my brother's comment here. Well, no, I'll start with T. Riddler. He said Bethune-Cookman should be blasted. So I think he's referring to Ed Reed and what happened with Ed Reed. T. Riddler says few lawyers come close to 300,000. Okay. Salty, do you know anything about what lawyers make? Not that I don't trust you, T. Riddler, but the perception is that lawyers, the perception is that's a profession that pays really well. My father actually wanted me to be a lawyer, by the way, because he thought it was going to pay really well. I ended up doing something else, as you can see. Amal says JCSU compensated him by giving his son Darius cameras and equipment to set up their social media to control their NILs. Salty says $300,000 gross. Then he spent $150 on the players. Yeah, so Deion had to come out of pocket at Jackson State. He didn't have to. He chose to. Raheem Gaines says alumni support matters so much in college football. Salty says they don't see the macro. They simply don't care. Yeah, my mentor's brother, I interviewed, I don't think he'll mind if I say this, Timmy Newsome. I need to have Timmy come back. He played at Winston-Salem State. He played for the Dallas Cowboys under Tom Landry. He told me a story when I saw him 2 months ago about a move that Winston-Salem State made that he didn't think was, he recommended them doing something else, and they did the opposite, and the school basically lost money over it. Alumni donations. JJ Myers says poor fiscal management and funding. T. Riddler says corruption. Ray Alexander says Raheem Gaines, state-supported HBCUs must be equitably funded. Southern states have historically underfunded those universities, and they need to be funded up to par, just like the mainstream schools. Yes, but alumni need to take responsibility for their institutions as well. There are a lot of folks out there living their best lives while their institutions falter. But they go back for homecoming, and they go back for the Battle of the Bands, and they go back to hang out on the yard. The dropout rate at HBCUs hurts. Reynolds says several. I think he's referring to my question about has anyone in the chat gone to HBCU football games? Ray Alexander, do state governments consider the amount of alumni donations when funding HBCUs? Salchi says I think he meant HBCUs federal capital subsidy was reduced from $48,150,000 in 2021 to $20,150,000 in 2022, 2023, and 2024. So their federal allotment was more than halved. So Reynolds says Howard, Delaware State, and Norfolk State. I think this means going to the games. JJ says if black mega churches like TD Jakes and Reverend Creflo Dollar had a connection with HBCUs and helped them financially, maybe that might help. Almost done. Ray Alexander says Raheem Gaines, it's not an alumni issue. It is a state funding issue. Black Texas legislators demanded Texas to fairly fund Texas Southern University and Prairie View A&M University. Other HBCUs sued their states. So to Raheem Gaines, good convo here. Prairie View A&M University built a $340 million new facility over the past, let me read that again. Prairie View A&M built $340 million in new facilities over the past 10 years and increased its enrollment to 9,000 students, new engineering, new stadiums, and a new student center, etc. Please smash that like button if you haven't. Reynolds says they have a tough schedule. Hope they get one or two more W's than 3 offensive and a defensive linemen each in the transfer portal. Yeah, that's the talk of where Colorado is weak, and that's at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. Let's see. Salchi says, T-Brother, correct. The majority of attorneys and accountants earn less than, $100K per year. So you're not going to hear that anywhere else except from a financial expert. Abdul Gaines, he's the one sending these Deion texts every day, all day long. Why is it assumed Why is it assumed USC is going to crush Colorado? Do we not remember the Tulane Bowl game the Trojans played in? I am so tired of the Deion slander. I was trying to figure out. That looks almost like Sanders, but he's tired of the Deion slander. Keep doing your thing, Prime. This gets back to what we talked about earlier. Our HBCUs committed to football. Many of the games are social events. The master chef / golfer is here, and the former Jim Harbaugh hater, C. What's going on, C? He says, been a super busy day. Sorry I'm late. Yeah, same here. Thank you for stopping through. Another Western New Yorker there. Hey, see, on my sports channel around 9 o'clock, I'm talking to Carlos Bradbury. He was a teammate with Tim Wynn at LaSalle. If you're not doing anything, please consider tuning in. Raheem Gaines says, please smash that like button if you haven't. It's assumed they will crush Colorado because it will it will happen. Colorado won't be able to protect Shedeur. That's a good point. Talking on the sports side now, no matter how good or how talented your quarterback is, Shedeur is very talented. Eddie Robinson Jr., before scolding his father, said that he loves and likes Shedeur. So no matter how talented your quarterback is, football is won in the trenches. And if you can't protect your quarterback is not going to be anywhere near as effective as he could be. Ray Alexander says, Abdul Gaines, the dropout rate at mainstream public universities is high as well. State legislators are making demands that public universities do a better job of graduating students within 6 years. I'm going to read a few more of these, then I have to run. Good for Prairie View A&M. Taylor Walston says South Carolina State is going to Coastal Carolina. Oh, do you mean they're going to play Coastal Carolina? Is that what you mean, Taylor? Raheem Gaines says government can only do so much regarding whether HBCUs are funded or not. Government can't do everything for us. Yeah, I think that underscores the importance of alumni giving. Black Cloud says, what day and time is that show, Doc? I'll try to be there, my brother. It's going to be tonight at 9 o'clock over on Big Discussions 76 Sports. Ray Alexander says, Raheem Gaines, state governments must fairly do their part. There's a lot of money. There's lots of state money to properly fund public HBCUs. So, Ray Alexander, that begs the question. I mean, aren't some states broke because they can't even fund their pensions for their state workers? Aren't some states not doing well? Salchi says, Raheem Gaines, on target. If the college is located in an undesirable state and their education programs are lacking. Yeah, I just think, and I'm going to wrap up now, having gone to an HBCU, having been the treasurer for my chapter and hearing about what goes on and how many alumni don't give back, I think a lot of whether or not our institutions stay open, a lot of that depends on us as alumni. And I want you to think about all of your all the HBCU alumni that you know who are living their best lives, you know, taking trips, balling out. Think about that. And there are quite a few of them who don't give anything back to the HBCUs. Some people may look at this and get mad at me, but someone has to put the message out. And when our former president came to DC a couple of years ago, that was a large part of the messaging. Hey, maybe buy one less caramel macchiato, buy one less purse, buy one less pair of shoes. See if you can't save up a few dollars to give back to your alma mater. So with that, I'm going to wrap up because I need to get outside and walk for a little bit. I need to eat something, and I have to do part 3 of this triple header. Everyone, thank you for hanging out in the chat. Thank you for your comments. Thank you to Professor Black Ops for the super chat. Thank you to Salchi for the generous Cash App. This is Big Discussions 76, my original channel. My name is Dr. Anwar Youssef Dunbar. Please like, share, and subscribe, especially if you're new. If you are a returning sub, please like and share. Consider sharing on your Facebook or in your other social media. That helps out a lot with the growth of the channel. Please consider joining the Big Words LLC newsletter. I am a blogger and a writer and an aspiring author. Well, Ron Will said, you're an author. Stop saying aspiring. This link is below in the description box. Thank you to everyone who has signed up. There is a 2-paragraph greeting. And that subscription button is there at the bottom. You just click that and it takes you there, and you just enter in your email address and you're a part of the group. Yeah, and if you're watching on the playback and you want to make a donation, again, there's a super thanks option here on this channel that's active. And I think that's all I've got. Reynolds, see the way you have it spelled out there, I don't know whether to say Reynolds or Reynolds, but good stream. Thank you for that. That encouragement there. I appreciate that. So with that, everyone, I'll talk to you next time. Once again, a triple header. This one will be related to my book project. It'll be over on my sports channel, Big Discussions 76 Sports. And I'm doing that at 9 o'clock. All right, everyone. Have a good night. I'll talk to you next time. As always, remember that your attitude determines your altitude. Always try to do your best. Take care, and I will talk to you the next time. Bye-bye.